Hey everyone, this is Chef. Welcome back to Commander Camp. If you spent some time in World vs. World, you'll note that some commanders talk very quickly.
Putting up with walls in 3, 2, 1, pushing forward on walls, walls in circle, walls in circle, walls in circle, walls circle, walls circle, cleave circle, cleave circle.
While others are more measured and deliberate.
Stop.
Hello.
Turn. Walls on it, right, you're on the choke.
But how you talk is much less important than what you say. In this video, we're going to cover the role of effective communication in commanding, both for a commander and for people in a squad. This discussion isn't limited to just voice communication either. We'll also get into commanding through chat and placing markers as ways that you can communicate your plans for your squad if you're not in voice comms. As always, these sections will be timestamped, so if there's a particular communication style you want to know more about, go ahead and find it. Things run more smoothly in your squad when people can anticipate what you're going to do next, whether it's where you're going to push, when you're going to call for a spike, or even what objective you want to attack next. Being able to communicate these things effectively to your squad keeps everyone on the same page and working together. To start, let's talk about things you should communicate clearly during a fight with another group, and here we can break things down into two big points: communicating your movement and communicating skill usage. But before we get into specific details, I just want to add an asterisk to this entire video. There's no best way to communicate. Communication is important, but the best approach to communicating is something you're going to need to figure out by working with your own group. What I'm going to talk about in this video are suggestions and general rules that work for me and my squads, but I'd strongly encourage you to take the things I talk about as advice and find things that work best for you. With that said, let's start with communicating your movement during a fight. The closer your group is able to stay to your tag, the more success you're going to have. Players who are off tag are easy pickings for roamers and duelers, and groups of players that get separated from your tag are easier for an enemy squad to spike down. When you're commanding, you want to be able to clearly communicate when and where you're going to push, because this makes it easier for people to react to your movements, as well as predict them in advance. There's a few different ways that you can communicate this. You can use relative directions, like left or right. You can use cardinal directions, like east or west. And you can use landmarks, like gate, stairs, or wall. Relative directions work well when your group is facing and moving the same direction, because if you call dodge left, what left is should be the same for everyone in squad. All of their cameras will be pointing in the same direction. But making left, right, forward, and back calls gets more difficult if people aren't all looking in the same direction in the middle of a fight. As an alternative, you can use cardinal directions like north, south, east, or west. These aren't ambiguous like left, right, forward, and back, but newer players may need to spend a bit of time figuring out what direction north is when they're in the middle of a fight, and may be slower to react as a result. You can help to avoid both these issues by using easily identifiable landmarks near the fight, like ramps, gates, walls, stairs, the Lord's Room, or other terrain features, but these calls can also get confusing if there's more than one terrain feature nearby. What I'm trying to say is, each of these approaches to communicating your movement has advantages and disadvantages, and you'll want to try and use the call that's most appropriate and clear for the situation that your group is currently in. That does take a bit of practice, because it depends on a lot of different factors, but there's no single best suggestion that's going to work for all cases. As a commander, you'll also want to communicate your expectations for when players in your squad use their skills. This is something that depends a lot on your own personal style, and I'd encourage you to take this part of the video as a series of suggestions, only using the parts that work well for you and your group. Some commanders prefer to micromanage every skill that's used, while other commanders make almost no specific calls for skills at all, leaving those decisions up to their players in squad. The approach that you decide to use is going to be up to you and what you find to be successful. When I'm commanding, I like to coordinate high impact skills like Necromancer's Wells and Berserker's Primal Burst skills, as well as give reminders for when to use skills proactively, like when Firebrand should use major stability cooldowns, or when people need to dodge. Part of that is because when I'm not commanding, I play a lot of Necromancer and Berserker, and I'm more familiar with when I want those skills to be used during a fight. The skills that you decide to call for as a commander, and the skills that you leave up to players in your squad, will almost certainly be different than mine, based on your own experience and the specific type of squad composition that you run. Other commanders who I've played with will do things like set up a specific order that Chronomancers and Berserkers should use their rally utility skills, or their long cooldowns like Dome or Gravity Well, or call for healing at specific times. It comes down to the kind of group that you're running, and the specific times that you want your squad to coordinate their skills for maximum impact in the current fight. Many commanders, myself included, we'll use a 3, 2, 1 countdown in order to ensure that this coordination happens, both for when to move and for when to use skills. Countdowns help people get their timing exactly right, or prepare to move with you, but counting down is not always a good idea, and sometimes you need to prioritize reacting quickly to an enemy group instead, maybe because they've positioned themselves in a bad spot and you need to take advantage of it right now, or because they've surprised you with a push and you don't have time to count down where you're moving to. If you aren't sure, not having a countdown at all is almost always better than starting a countdown and then changing your mind about it and stopping. You can definitely overuse countdowns, and you want to be mindful of the fact that that's not happening. In the same vein, if you're going to count down your movement, make sure that you personally don't move until after you've completed your countdown. Voice comms have lag, so if you're counting down moving left side in 3, 2, 1, and you start moving between the 2 and the 1, you're going to be very far ahead of your group as they try to catch up. The point of a countdown is to get everyone in your squad coordinated, focused, and ready for what's coming next. So if you're frequently moving before you end your countdown, or stopping it halfway through, it disrupts that focus, and it makes people less coordinated in future fights. Communication doesn't stop outside of a fight though. The most important element of being a commander is making sure that your squad is having fun, whatever fun happens to be for the people that you play with. In between fights, you may want to scout the map and communicate with your squad about where you plan to go next. You may also want to talk about what people think of upcoming balance patches, or current class metas. Or you may not want to talk about Guild Wars 2 at all, and make small talk instead. Active communication during downtime between fights keeps people engaged and interested in the squad, and keeps them focused up. This is also a good time to point out that communication doesn't just mean a commander speaking to their squad. If you're in a squad, but not commanding, you can also scout for enemy groups. During fights, you can call out your skill cooldowns, or ask for help if you're falling behind the rest of the group. You can point out OJs on the map, or you can look for enemy groups approaching, just in case your commander missed them. Communication in good squads goes two ways. Commanders both make calls themselves, but also react to calls from their group about what's going on during a fight. And the better a commander's group is able to let the commander know what's going on, the more effective that squad will be overall. In all of these examples, I'm assuming the commander and their squad are in voice comms, but this of course is not always the case. Maybe you don't like to use voice comms when commanding, and you type instead. Typing instead of speaking is always going to be slower, but many of these same general ideas still apply. You can communicate in say chat about when you're pushing and where. You can give countdowns by typing 3, 2, and 1. And you can report scout calls or make small talk in map chat or in team chat. If you're fast enough to type out commands and instructions during a fight, it's extremely helpful, especially for letting other friendly groups around you know what you plan to do. But if you aren't able to do that, try and share a plan with the people around you before a fight, and then make sure you stick to that plan while you command. As an example, I'm going to play a clip of me commanding, but I'm going to snip my audio out, and instead I'm going to make some suggestions about what I could have said in say chat so that players around me understand what I wanted to do in that fight. Last, I want to talk about squad markers, and this is something that I need to do a much better job of in my own commanding. This section is as much for my own benefit as it is for yours. There's two types of squad markers: markers that you place on players, and markers that you place on the ground. You can bind them by going to your options menu, then keybinds, then scrolling to the squad section. There are 8 different squad markers, but if you're short on keybinds, you don't need to bind all of them. You only need to use a few. While focus target, the red reticle, is only visible by people in your party, squad markers are visible for everyone in the squad, and you can use them to mark players and points of interest. For example, many commanders will place a squad marker on a random person in an enemy group, so that enemy group is more visible on the minimap. Or you can squad mark enemy players who are trying to pull or snipe you, so the DPS and support players in your squad can pay more attention to them and be ready for them to try and use these tactics. Ground play squad markers, on the other hand, can be used for clear positioning communication by placing a mark on the ground where you want your group to move, and then calling to push to that mark instead of using other directionals. You can also communicate with your squad to designate different squad markers as meaning different things, such as using star as a mark for placing damage, and using spiral as a mark for movement. Squad markers are an invaluable tool for quickly communicating with your group, whether you're commanding in voice or through text, and one of the things that you use the most work in my personal commanding. If you've watched me stream or paid close attention to my commanding footage, you'll know that I almost never use ground play squad markers, and this is something that I should be working on more. There's a lot more that I want to talk about with regards to communicating in world versus world, both for commanders and for squad members, but I think for now it's best to use this video as the basics to get down first, and then explore different specialized topics in their own separate videos. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And if you think there's something important about communication that I didn't cover here, you should leave a comment and let me know so that we can talk about it further. If you have some footage that you want to talk about, on the other hand, you can join my Discord. I'm working on setting up a footage review channel where we can all discuss and learn from one another in a constructive environment. And finally, I command every Tuesday and Wednesday on Twitch if you'd like to watch me command in real time and ask questions there. But until then, I've been Chef, and enjoy the rest of your day.